Welcome back to part 2 of our video tutorial where we're learning how to create our first web page. In the first video we got as far as this, where we created the structure of our web page using HTML code. There it is there. What we're going to be doing in this video though is styling up this web page using CSS, or cascading style sheets, which is just a little bit of extra code to make our web page look a bit nicer, with a bit of color and a bit of style. Okay, so to get started on adding in a style sheet, what you need to do is jump back over to your editor. Okay, so remember I'm using brackets here, and instead of adding our style sheet into this document, we're going to make a new one. We're going to put it into a separate file. So make yourself a new document, and you'll get a blank file here in brackets, and what I want you to do is save that empty file. It needs to go over into your My First Web Page folder that you created in the previous video. As you can see, with our images and our index page there. What we're going to do with our style sheet is call it style.css. It is good practice to always call your style sheet style, and you need the extension on the end .css so the computer knows you are making a cascading style sheet. Click on save. Okay, so you've now got two documents here, your HTML document, which is the structure of your web page, and you've got your style sheet over here, which we haven't got any code in yet, but this is going to be the one that styles up our HTML and makes it look good. Okay, now to get these two files talking to one another so we can actually get this HTML looking good, you need to link them together. So up in the head section of your HTML document, I want you to make a new line beneath the title, and we're going to add in a link tag. Now the link tag doesn't have a closing tag to go with it. All you need to write inside of the link tag is that we are making a style sheet. So we need to write rel equals style sheet, and then we also need to tell the computer where to find our style sheet. Where's it saved on our computer? So we write href equals, and in quotation marks we write style.css, and that is just pointing to that file just there. CSS file we saved a moment ago. So now we have linked a style sheet called style.css to this HTML document. So any styling we do over here in our style sheet will be applied to this HTML document. I know that sounds confusing, but watch what happens when we start coding things up in a moment. So the first thing we're going to style up in this web page is this H1 heading. At the moment it's just a plain black heading. What we are going to do is change the color of it. Okay, so let's start simple. We'll go over to our style sheet, and we're going to say anything inside the H1 tags we're going to style up with a different color. So the color we're going to choose today is, we need a dark color, so just look through this list that appears. You could choose dark green, dark magenta, there's a heap of different colors there, so you choose. I might go with this dark blue. Okay, and at the end of that line put a semicolon, which just tells the computer you've finished writing that line of code. And that's your first piece of CSS code. All you do is write in the tag that you want to style up. So we want to style up this H1 tag, and in curly brackets or curly braces apply, or basically write down the effects you want to apply to that H1 tag. So all we want to do is change the color of that H1 tag to dark blue. Press Ctrl S to save that style sheet. Go over to your web page and refresh it. I'm just going to zoom in before I do that. Watch carefully. I don't know if you'll be able to see it too well on your video, but this should change from black to dark blue. There we go. So we've now got a dark blue H1 heading. Okay, now if you wanted to change that dark blue to something else, easy. Go and delete dark blue, choose another color. Okay, let's try crimson, see how that looks. Make sure you got your semicolon at the end, save it, go and refresh the page again. You can see now anything inside those H1 tags, which is just that heading there, will change to whatever color you choose. I'm going to stick with the dark blue though, so let's go back to that, and that's my H1 section styled up. The next section I want to style up is the main body section, so everything inside this body section I want styled. So I'm going to write in the word body now, And on the next line, I'm going to put in some curly brackets. And the first thing I want to change is the background color. So if you write the word background and color, again, make sure you spell color the American way. Go and choose yourself a background color. It needs to be a light color. Now this list you're seeing here is only a shortened version of the different colors you can get in CSS. If you jump online and actually search for HTML color names or CSS color names, you should get a list of, how many is there? 140 different colors. And this web page here, W3 Schools, is a really good resource for learning about HTML and CSS, and it will give you a list of all the different colors you can use by name. Okay, and there they all are there in alphabetical order. You can group them together if you would prefer, and that groups the different shades of colors like your reds and blues and oranges and so on. So by all means, go through here, choose a color you like the looks of, and look at the color name and write it in. So if I want to choose a light color, let's go with lavender. Let's make my background color lavender. Whoops. Put a semicolon at the end, save it up, and let's go and refresh our page here. And you see now I've got this really light purpley kind of color in the background. If you don't like that look, go and change it to something else. Where's another light color? Here we go. Some of these yellowy ones look good. Light yellow, lemon chiffon. Actually, that might be a cool looking color. So I'm going to change that code from lavender to lemon chiffon. I'll press Ctrl S to save it, go and refresh it, and now I've got lemon chiffon in the background there. So I might stick with that color for my background. It's up to you though what you choose. Now another way you can change your colors is by using a hexadecimal code. Okay, all these colors you've got here have a corresponding hexadecimal value. So if I wanted to change my background color yet again to, let's say, well, those greens are a bit ugly. Let's try something here, blanched almond. Let's change it to hashtag FFEBCD. That's a little code that represents blanched almond. So you don't have to write the name of the color. You can write the hex value. Save it up, go and test it. And you can see that now I've got this orangey kind of color in the background. That's another way you can change your colors. And just to confuse you, let's do it a third way. If I just delete what I've got there, background color. Now if I choose like Alice Blue for a second, I can right click on that and go to quick edit. And here's my little color mixer. I can now play around with different colors here to choose another background color for my web page. Now there's about 3 different ways at least that you can change your background colors. Alright, so it's up to you what you choose. I might just stick with that now just so I don't confuse you any further, but that's my background color. If I hover over it, I'll get a glimpse of it. It's that pale yellow kind of look. There it is there. So let's just stick with that. Next thing I want to do is change my font. If I zoom in here a bit, the fonts that are used by default are called serif fonts. Now serif fonts are fonts that have little feet or little caps on the end of each letter. So if you look carefully on the Y, for example, it's got that little cap on the end of it. Up the top there, it's got 2 little caps as well. That font doesn't work very well on computer screens or phone screens. It is best used in things like newspapers and magazines and printed documents. But on the computer, we need to change that serif font to something called a sans serif font, which gets rid of those little feet or little caps from each letter. So in this body section still, I'm going to go beneath the background color there, and I'm simply going to write font-family. And the font family I'm going to choose is the sans serif family. If I save that, look carefully as the font changes when I refresh this. Gets rid of those little caps and feet on the end of each letter to a much more simple font that is easier to read on computer screens. Okay, so I always like to use a sans serif font. Coming in after that, I'm going to change the line height. Now the line height is just the line spacing. So how much space we want to include between each line. At the moment, this section here is quite cluttered, I reckon. It's quite jam-packed together. So what I want to do is just space it out a little bit more and give it a bit more breathing room, and that's what the line height value can do. Now if I write in the value 1em, okay, nothing's going to change, I don't think. If I refresh that, pretty much just clumped it together even more. What I'm going to change it to is 1.5 em. Em is basically the default font size. 1 em is the default font size. So if I make something 2 em, it adds in line spacing, like 200% line spacing, or double the size line spacing of what I've got now. Okay, so there you go. That's what 2 em looks like. It's probably a little bit too spaced out for my liking, so I'm going to change it to 1.5 em, which is about 150% line spacing. Let's have a look there. That looks a bit nicer. Alright, so that is 1.5 em line height, adding a bit of breathing room between each line of text. And the final thing I'm going to do is change my font size to 1 em, which is just the standard font size that we want to use. Probably the easiest to read on your computer screen. I don't think that's going to change anything. Let's have a look. No, it doesn't. So it was already set to 1 em. But that's probably all the styling that I think we need to do in our first crack at CSS. I don't want to overwhelm you with different settings, because there are heaps of different ways we can style up web pages. You've just got a very small glimpse as to what you can do. So you can change the color of your fonts, change the background colors, you can change your font itself, and how much breathing room or line height or line spacing is a better way of describing it we have between each line of text. You can also change your font size. If you want to learn more about the different things you can style up, go back to this W3 Schools website and click on CSS up here. You can have a gander through all the different things that you can change in your websites. Okay, there's a whole heap of stuff there, and we're going to be going through quite a few of these as the term progresses. Not all of them, but we're going to go through quite a few. As I said, we'll keep it simple for this one. That's all the styling we're going to do. This is how your web page should have turned out. I think it looks all right for a first web page. I'll catch you in the next video tutorial where we'll try and jazz things up a little bit more. Okay, so I'll see you then.